Hi everyone!
Hi there!
I'm Jenna Marcy. I'm a law of attraction coach.
And Dr. Syra, transpersonal psychotherapist.
And we are talking about loving up your problems today.
Which is not something you would naturally want to do.
No. And if you told me that a year ago, I'd have been like, love up your own problems.
So we're going to set a timer because sometimes Jenna and I talk.
And we just don't stop.
And we don't stop. So for your benefit, we're going to set a timer. What should we say? 20 minutes? 25?
Sure.
Okay, something like that. Like an episode, like an actual episode on the show.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you will hear the ringer, so that's what that's about.
Yeah.
Keep us in check,
Yes. So, yeah, typically we would talk more about avoiding problems, which is not a bad way to go.
It's actually a pretty good way. So here's the thing. We've been socialized our entire life to like face your problems and overcome your problems and like what?
Struggle, because
and, like,
that's the only way you're going to triumph at the end.
Yeah.
How many of you have actually triumphed at the end of a crap load of struggling? Not me.
No, you just feel worse.
You feel worse.
You know the worst or the best movies about that are sports movies. Right? Because that was like the underdog team, like nobody has any talent, and they work so hard, and then at the end they win or they don't win, but it's okay because, they learned along.
That's
right?
Every sports film I've ever seen.
Yeah. So whenever my husband's like, let's go watch a sports movie, I'm like, I know how it's going to end.
Yeah.
The other team's going to be wearing black because it makes them look scarier in their dark uniforms. And our team, the underdogs, are going to like have that moment where they're doing great, and then they're going to fail, and then they're going to do great, and then at the end, it's going to be a story of triumph.
Exactly.
And when you tell the story of your human experience, you want it to be logical, right? So like this morning, I was telling Jenna the story about how my parents met, my mom and my stepdad. And, telling the story 20 years later, there's a very logical progression. Like this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. But in the middle of it, it was like a bloody chaos.
Like, what the hell is going on? What is happening? How is this happening?
Marriages are falling apart and people are unhappy. But looking back, it's like, oh yeah, well clearly this happened and this happened. So
it was meant to be because now this is happening.
But in the middle of it, it felt like a chaos. And so we have to be careful when we're in the middle of it to not make that the truth about what's happening right now. Like if you take any one slice of that story, you'd be like, oh, and this is the point where it could have all fallen apart. And this is another point where it could have fallen apart. And this is another point. And so in the middle of that point, if you're living that story and you fall apart, you don't actually get to the end. You don't get to the happy ending.
But here's the thing: is that there is no ending ever.
That's
right?
The other
so
thing.
it's always just progressing. And I think what we don't put enough attention on is the fact that whatever you're focused on is what you're going to get more of. And in all these stories, it kind of seems like, oh, this was just meant to be, or this had to happen for this specific reason. But the truth is that everyone is creating their own reality. And if you believe that you're creating your own reality, then it gives you a lot of onus to be able to do the things that you want to do to create the reality that you want, which seems kind of scary if you don't know what we're talking about, right?
Right. And so we'll tell you a little bit more about the background in a minute. I wanted to ask you, Jenna, have you heard of the semicolon tattoo?
No.
Okay, I think you'll really enjoy this. And y'all can listen too. Okay. So I was at this conference and they were talking about the semicolon tattoo, which is, you know what a semicolon is, right? It's like a thing and then like a comma underneath. So what is a semicolon in a sentence? It's a pause,
bridges,
right? It's a pause, and then you go on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not a period. It's not the end of the sentence. It's the middle of the sentence. And so you're talking about something, you take a little pause, and maybe you change direction, but you talk about something else, and then there's a period. And so the semicolon tattoo is being put on, or like people are getting that tattoo, people who are really, really committed to remembering that this is just a pause. Right? That whatever difficulty that they're having is just a moment, is a semicolon in the longer sentence. Right? So if you can think of your problem as that semicolon, right? It's a pausing place. It's a place, actually an opportunity to reflect and to think about, okay, how do I want this sentence to end? Right? In this particular chapter of my life, there's this particular sentence, and how's it going to end? It's not the period. It's not final. It's not the end. I have a friend who struggled with suicidal ideation for a while. And she talks about the semicolon, and she talks about how it just reminds her that this isn't the end, and I have a choice to make every time things get difficult.
Yes. And thinking about how you want the sentence to end is such an important part that a lot of people don't give any thought to, right? They don't think, how do I want this to work out? They just think, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working, and then it's not working because that's all they're focused on.
Right.
But when you think, okay, this is the aspect of this story that I want to continue. I want, this relationship to grow in these ways. And this is what I want. When you're focused on what you actually want, then you get to put your attention on something. And also the semicolon will allow you that space to actually ask, right? Which is what we were talking about this morning too. We forget sometimes to ask for help in what we want. So I was telling Syra that there's certain days that I just feel like I'm in such a terrible mood. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out how to get myself out of this mood. I'm just like angry at the world and angry at myself and especially angry at Althaz.
Poor guy. We always punch our partner emotionally, right? We're like, it's your fault.
Yes. And I'm just so mad. And I have asked Althaz now to remind me when I'm in those moods to ask for help. Because I forget to just simply say, please help, like show me how to get out of this mood. Because as soon as I ask, it's answered just like that.
It's instant.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's hard to explain if you haven't experienced it. So we would challenge you to actually try that in your own life. And it could feel like you're faking it or whatever, which is fine. Sometimes things feel that way when you're starting to learn, right? Like, remember learning a bike? You just had to kind of figure it out, like, and then, I'm driving a bike, right? So it'll feel a little bit like that at first, like, I get it, right?
Yeah.
But trust us, like, just ask. And who are you asking? Well, you're asking your higher self, right? You're asking that part of you that knows what's best for you, that's beyond, your little plan for your life and has a much bigger plan that's connected to, like, the plan for humanity.
Exactly. Yeah, and all you have to do is simply say, please show me. Like, please show me. Yeah, please show me the way. Yeah. It's so simple. And it feels so nice to give all of that pressure up, to just say, I'm done with it. I'm not going to try to force my life to look a certain way, and I'm not going to try to force my mood to be a certain way. Just, like, show me how to do it, please. That's it.
From the 80s, we started as a society getting really, really caught in perfectionism, right? Like, the 70s were really about, like, letting go and letting free love. And then the 80s and the 90s became really about, like, okay, now we have to do things a certain way. If you do things this way, here's the formula, and you will succeed. And it's exhausting because you're constantly working. And you might know people like this who are always working but never getting ahead.
Yeah.
Like they're just working and all they're talking about is work.
It's exhausting. Even just watching them or listening to them, you're like, oh, get me out of here.
Sounds hard, right? And it's because there's a model that we developed that no longer works in 2016. It just doesn't work. And we need a new model now. And that's what we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. So this model is really about creating your reality.
Right.
Creating your reality out of what is, create what you want to be.
Right.
And the way you do it is through your feelings and your thoughts. Right.
So say, for example, you're baking a cake, right? Do you put out all the ingredients, right? So you take out the eggs and the flour and the sugar and the butter and you look at it all and you say, why aren't you a cake? Oh my goodness, you're just eggs, you're just flour. Or do you actually start
Sometimes I do that.
Or do you actually like find a recipe and like start putting things together, right? And it might not be perfect, but you're starting to create something. You're starting to build something, and eventually there's a cake.
Yeah,
right.
And then the more you do it, the easier it is to make a cake out of eggs and flour.
Right. So many of us, what we do is we look at what's here now, and we feel bad about it. And we feel like a failure, or we feel like, how am I ever going to do this? Rather than actually like taking steps to move it in the direction that we want.
Yes.
Right?
Because your life right now is literally just a culmination of all your previous thoughts.
Right.
And you had no freaking clue what you were doing before, right? Like, if you didn't know about manifesting, you were just living by default.
Right.
So your life is a default life.
Right.
But now you have the opportunity to create something that you really want. So think about what it is that you want and focus on the good aspects, the good feelings. Really just feel good.
Right.
And see what happens.
And there's lots of different recipes, right? Like there's hundreds of cake recipes, but the idea is pick a recipe, pick something and start working with it, working towards it. And that's what we've done. We've picked the Law of Attraction, right? And we've picked the Course in Miracles, and we're starting to use that recipe to move towards the life that we really want.
And what's great about the Law of Attraction and the Course in Miracles is that the reward is there from the beginning, because the reason that we try for all of these things, the reason that we try for success and we try for the bigger house and the nicer car is because we think it's going to bring us happiness. And what the Law of Attraction says is be happy now. See what it is that you already have. Feel happy in knowing that what you want is just around the corner. And then you get happiness now plus all that other stuff.
Right.
That's just like icing on the cake then. It's like, all right, cool. Now I have a boat. That's awesome.
That's awesome. But I had happiness like 5 years ago.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're living a completely different vibration, a different story. And what's really cool is when you start actually loving up your problems the way we're talking about, your friends will start to change. You'll start getting some really freaking cool people in your life, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was, the other day I was on the phone and I was talking about the law of attraction to someone that really didn't know what it was. And I was saying, it's weird, but everybody in my life right now that I actually have a relationship with knows about this and is practicing it.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they didn't know it before, now they know it and now they're practicing it. And it's like you have all these entirely new conversations with people, and you find that the people that are so stuck in their problems that they don't really want to change yet will just sort of fade away. Like they won't be calling you as often, and you won't have to interact with them as much. And when you do, it'll be on a different level.
Right. And there's still like the mentorship, right? We're still there to help each other. And like, during the civil rights movement, when women's rights movements in the 70s, they had this phrase called lift as we climb, right? And that's really my philosophy around all this personal development work, is that we're going and we're climbing and we're going to lift. We're going to help the people who are one or two steps behind, right? But the people who are at the bottom of the ladder, like, you're not going to keep going down the ladder to get those people up. No, you're going to help the people who are one or two rungs behind you, and you keep lifting, and then they'll lift the people under them, and together we get there, right? Yeah. As a group.
And when you're focused on feeling good, you won't even notice that you're doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you'll have no idea. One day you'll wake up and you'll just realize that you have all these friends that are like so different than the friends that you used to have. And you're doing all this fun stuff and you're like, oh, where'd that come from? I know.
We're those people. They're just like having a lot of fun. Yeah. Not doing much.
And you start to look at your problems in a different way. And that's one of the huge shifts. And that's what we're talking about today. Mm-hmm. Looking at your problems in a different way. Seeing your problems for what they're going to give you. Meaning, when you see, in the past, maybe you went through a difficult time and you were focused on all the horrible things that came from that difficult time. Oh, like, when I tell a story about when I was 15, I'm like, oh, and I gained weight and I lost all my friends and everything was awful and I moved away and, I was lonely. And that's all I see, right? And now when I'm looking at that problem, I think, wow, that time in my life made me realize how important it is for me to feel good about myself and to be friends with myself first and foremost, beyond being friends with anyone else, and to be comfortable no matter where I am. Doesn't matter if I'm in a place I've lived my whole life or in an entirely new place. I gained all those skills through going through that difficult time, right? And so you start to look at your problems in a different way, and a problem can happen to me right now, and I'll notice that, okay, the contrast that this is providing in my life is letting me know what I want in my future.
Right. And even the way you start talking about your past starts to change, right? Totally. So one of my teachers says it's never too late to have a happy childhood. And what that's about is that how you talk about your past. So we're in a culture, at least in the West, where it's a psychology culture, right? So everything, there's a reason for the way you are. If you just find that reason and you uncover it, then you'll be released and then you'll be a new person, which is the model. It's a cool model. Except what happens is a lot of people spend a lot of time talking about why they are the way they are.
And trying to figure it out.
And then trying to justify. Blaming. So blaming your parents, blaming your environment, blaming whatever, blaming your teachers, and then justifying bad behavior with that story.
Yeah, well, of course I'm this way because this is my childhood.
And so then they never grow. They never move beyond that, right?
They don't take responsibility.
They don't take responsibility. So what we're saying is that, yes, things happen in your past. You may be curious about why you are the way you are, but it doesn't actually really matter. Yeah. What matters is today and what happens from here into the future.
And, if you want to have a sob story, you can have a sob story, right? Like, if that's what you want, then go for it. But if you want to really figure out how to live a happy life now, you will look back at your life and take the good. You will take the good, and you will only remember the good because the contrast happened in your life to bring you to where you are now. And this contrast is happening to bring you even better places.
So
right?
A great way, I think on our Facebook Live, somebody mentioned like turning your sob story into a victory song, right? It's like turning it into a victory song because you know what? You made it here. Like you're here today. You're watching this. You had to overcome a lot of bullshit to get to where you are today. And that's a victory, right? Yeah. And so now where are we going next, right? Let's talk about where we're going next. Let's talk about the next thing. Let's talk about how incredible and the opportunities that are coming up rather than the old sob story.
Yeah. And I don't know if you follow Abraham Hicks, but if you do, you will know what I'm talking about. They talk about rockets of desire, right? So they say that through every contrast, through every negative experience, your inner spirit, you're sending rockets of desire into your vortex. Now that sounds really cuckoo. So let's explain what that is.
Let's break it down.
So every time something happens that you don't like, you realize very clearly what you do like and what you do want. And when you know what you want, just the fact of you knowing what you want means that the universe has already provided it for you. They've already made it. They've made that situation happen where you have everything that you want. All you have to do is then allow it in. So vibrationally speaking, it's there.
It's there. So an example of that, like a practical example, is for nursing mothers, right? So the baby will cry and suddenly the milk will just start coming, right? So like the baby asked for something. Before the baby's even next to me, I'm already providing it for the baby, right? And so the universe is kind of like that divine mother that's like letting down her... Very graphic, sorry. Don't go and breastfeed with your cat, ew. But... right, but it's like the universe is already providing. As soon as you cry, as soon as you ask, as soon as you're in that painful place, it's like the milk is coming, the nourishment is coming for you. And it's just now what we do as adults is like we think, oh, maybe I need to go to the store and buy some milk now because I need...
Because we think we need to make it happen.
We think we're the ones who are the parent. And we're the ones who are in charge, but we're not. There's actually a much bigger force that's wanting to give to us all the time. Yeah. We just have to turn towards it. Right? Yeah. Orient ourselves towards that, and then it's right there for us. Rather than orienting ourselves towards the pain of not having it.
Yeah. And actually, like what we're talking about today is actually asking, right? So take your problems, love them up, and ask for what you want.
Right.
And when you ask for what you want, you'll see that it comes into your life. The asking is what we forget.
You know? Why do we forget? Why do you think we forget to ask?
Because
what the hell is going on?
I think that we feel like we need to be able to do everything ourselves. Just like you were saying, we feel like we need to be able to do everything ourselves. We have gotten out of the phase of asking for things. Like our society has moved away from, taking a village to raise a child. Like we think that we have to do everything ourselves. It's very independent.
And people are exhausted, right? And frazzled and overwhelmed.
Every single person is trying to make something out of nothing without having the tools for it, without knowing that the tools are right there.
And without coming together to do it together, to not feel like we have to do this alone. Yeah. And that's alone, like, reaching out physically to friends. That's also reaching out spiritually, right? To the other forces, whatever you believe in, to help get you where you need to go.
So if you're in the middle of a problem right now, what are some practical things that you can do? Well, the first thing I think is to really be able to see your problem for the components, right? So instead of just looking, and you already are doing that, but you're probably focused on the negative stuff. So instead of just looking at exactly what's wrong in your life and only focusing on the one problem, focus on something slightly outside of the problem, right? So if the problem is that you are in a terrible relationship, focus on some of the things that you are getting in your life that maybe don't have to do with the relationship. Maybe you have a great job. Maybe you have tons of friends. Maybe you just feel good about yourself. Maybe you're feeling really confident lately.
Maybe you just got a great haircut.
Exactly.
Could be simple.
Something
very simple.
Super simple, yeah. Focus on stuff like that, right? So that's focusing on something outside of the problem. It's getting yourself into a state where you can feel good regardless of what's going on around you.
That's the slowing down the train.
Exactly.
Right?
Next is, I think, believing that something better is around the corner. Something better is always coming to you. The fact that you're going through this means that something better is around the corner because that's the way the universe works. It provides contrast so that we can then figure out what we want and recognize it when we get it, right? Because in the next relationship or in the next time, even when you're by yourself, you're going to know that you're feeling good, right? And this is very different from the bad feeling that I had in this past relationship, right? So where was I? You're asking the universe.
You're feeling good.
You're feeling good. Oh, and you have faith that something better is right around the corner.
So that's the question that a lot of people ask me, like in my family and my friends, like, well, in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the problem, in the midst of the contrast, how do we find that hope? How do we find the faith?
And you know what? People ask Abraham that, and he says, when you're feeling doubt, like the only way, you have to combat the doubt before it begins. So it really is just an innate knowing.
So it's like building the muscle before you need to use it.
Exactly.
Right.
Sometimes you have to almost brainwash yourself to think, okay, something better is coming. Like, I know because I've made it this far, because every time I've ever had a problem, something better was around the corner. Through all of that knowing, I know that something better is around the corner. It is faith because you don't see it yet.
And we have that model already. If you think of recovery and alcoholism and addictions, there is that model, right? You hit rock bottom and you just can't go any lower. And you know that the only place you can go is up. And that's when recovery actually begins, is when you make a decision to say, this is as low as it's going to go for me.
Yeah.
I'm now heading up.
And that is rock bottom, is when you decide it's rock
You
bottom.
decide,
because,
yeah.
you know, you can't wait for external forces to tell you, oh, you can go a little further down. No, you have to decide, like, this is my limit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done, and I'm ready for happiness. I'm ready for something better.
And some of us are actually addicted to negative feelings.
Oh my God,
like we spent so much of our life like in pain, in drama, in like tears, in like I can speak for myself. I used to think that like crying on like a daily basis was a normal thing. Like feeling bad every day was normal. Yeah. Right? And it's like all of a sudden one day I was like, what if this wasn't normal? What if I didn't have to cry every day? Like what if it didn't always have to be bad? Yeah. Something bad go wrong all the time. And all of a sudden I started making adjustments in my life. And you know what? To be honest, some people were not happy with it. Because part of what that meant was that I removed myself from a very toxic situation. Oh, yeah. Right? And then as soon as I removed myself, I wasn't crying every day. Oh, there's part of the solution, right? Yeah. And then from that, slowly, adjustments, adjustments. And now maybe I'll cry a little tear if I watch something really moving on TV today. But other than that, I'm generally happy.
Yes.
Right? But it took that like recognizing like, oh, maybe this is like not how I want to live, crying every single day.
And from there you kept taking a path of less resistance, right? So you kept on thinking, what is going to make me achieve my goal today in a small way?
And make me a little bit happy today.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the, there's one author who talks about following your bliss. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that can be like, oh yeah, just eat chocolate cake all day. No, that's not what he's talking about, right? Because eventually the chocolate cake's going to give you a tummy ache, right? If you just keep eating it. Yeah. So it's actually about following the next thing that's going to bring a smile to your face. And then the next thing, and then the next thing. And they can be really simple things, right? It could be like just looking at the way that the sun plays a shadow on your wall in the kitchen, right? And that could be it. Just a small thing that makes you smile.
But here's the missing link, I think, for a lot of people, is that we don't think it's okay to be happy. Right? So
what the hell is wrong with us?
I know. So when people say, oh, how do you get out of this painful situation into something better? You have to actually know that the purpose of being on this planet is to feel joy.
To just feel joyful. That's why we came, people.
But that's an unbelievable idea for some people.
But look at kids, right? Kids came in with all the biology to feel every emotion. But what are they feeling most often?
Joy.
They're feeling joyful, right? Unless there's some really intense thing going on, generally children are joyful. Yeah. That's our natural state. We've actually taught ourselves that that's not okay. And that's where the problem is, people.
And that's, I think, the shift
we are not in the 80s, people.
Yeah.
Move along. Yeah. Join us in 2016. We can be happy for no reason.
Because you've probably noticed in your life that when you're happy, good things happen. Right? It's not like the movies where when you're super depressed, suddenly some Prince Charming is going to save you. No, that's not. You're your own freaking Prince Charming. Sorry to tell you. Like, you have to pull yourself out of that. You have to recognize that when I'm happy, good things happen. Mm-hmm. And that can be your mantra. When I'm happy, good things happen. When I'm happy, good things happen.
Write it everywhere.
Yes, repeat it to yourself over and over again, because that is the truth as you know it. And if you look back in your life, you will realize the times when the best things were happening were when you were happy. Right? And it brings a momentum.
Yeah. There was an example we were talking about earlier about going on holiday, right? So when you go on a holiday, when I go on a holiday, I usually stay in a hotel, right? Hotel room. And that's a tiny space. And I have a family of 4. So there's like, 2 queen-size beds and a little bathroom. And, we have our suitcases. So there's not a lot of stuff or a lot of space. And yet we're having so much fun. Because we're going to the pool or walking in the neighborhood or getting to know the city. Now, why couldn't we just do that at home? We have an entire house here. We could do the same thing, right? But it's what's happening in here has changed. That somehow by shifting ourselves from this location to this location, we've given ourselves permission to be happy in this new tiny little 400 square foot.
Because it's vacation, so it's temporary. And then you go back to the real world, which is hard, and everything's terrible, and you have to do your homework, and you have to work. There's all this crap that you have to be an adult.
An adult. Do you really want to be an adult like that? I don't.
Nobody wants to be an adult.
No, thank you. I want that childlike, playful space where you just trust that things you don't even trust that things are going to happen. Things just happen. Yeah. It's not like my kids are trusting that they're going to get a bath today.
They just know that's going to happen.
They get clean.
Whatever's good for
me is
going to
happen. They get clean.
Just the end of
they
the
get
day.
Food. They get whatever, clothes that fit them. They don't have to think about it. And so what if we could actually allow that presence to be apparent to us and we could be that child?
So I think coming to terms with the fact, and it is a fact, that joy brings more joy, right? good things bring more good things. So coming to terms with the idea that maybe your entire life you've been wrong up till now, where you've been thinking that you need to struggle in order to make good things happen, and recognize that maybe good things can happen just from being happy. That's the first shift to make in order to really love up your problems, because then you know that this problem is only happening so that I can have something even better.
Even better.
Right?
It's reminding you that it's time to grow to the next
It's time
stage.
to grow, yeah. There's nothing wrong with problems. What is wrong about our problems is that we stay stuck in them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you can take a problem and say, okay, I'm going to see what's good in this, and I'm going to be happy and know that by being happy, good things are going to happen, then your problem seems very minuscule. But when you look at your problem and you think, oh, this problem, it gets so big, and you're stuck in it forever.
And those thoughts actually impact your body. Did you know that? Those thoughts, so our time is up, so we'll have to go in like 2 minutes. But when those thoughts are constantly going out, there's some experiments that they've done around water, right? And the impact that thoughts and words have on water. And it actually changes the chemistry and the chemical composition of water, negative thoughts and negative words. And these are really interesting. There's a book called The Hidden Messages in Water that people can read to find out more about that. It's like science, okay? It's not, we didn't make this up. So our bodies are 3/4 water. And so those thoughts and those words that we say are actually impacting us on a physical level, right? It's changing our bodies. And so you wonder why you have health issues, or you can't lose weight, or like whatever's going on in your body, your hair is falling out. Well, it has something to do with your thoughts and the way you speak about your life. And so change it. Change it today. Today's the day that you could just make a decision to start fresh and actually believe that your life was meant to be joyful.
Yeah. And self-talk really is the first step. It's all about what you're telling yourself, because the talk creates the emotion.
Right. What you're telling yourself and what you're telling other people, how you tell your story and how you talk about your problems.
So love up your problems.
Love them up. Transform them. Loving them is what's going to change them.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you. Join us next week for sure. We're on every Friday. And also check out our website. So JennaAmarcy.com and TalkToSyra.com. Those are our personal websites where we have like lots of other cool stuff that you can plug into. We also have a Facebook Live every week. So you can like us on Facebook, and then you can tap into that as well. And pass this along. If you have people in your life who have like all these problems and they're like needing to kind of love them up a little bit and move beyond them, please share.
Yeah, please do. And we will see you next week on Today Is Your Day.
Bye.
Bye.